for patterns, tricks, stitches and tips, wands and needles, embroidery.
In this video, I'm going to demonstrate a technique that you can use when you're doing satin stitch on more of a tapered or irregular shape like we have here with this sort of flower petal shape. You can see how it's wider at the top than it is at the bottom. So if I lay all my stitches parallel to one another like we typically do with satin stitch, I'm going to get to about here and here, and I'm going to run out of space at the bottom of my petal there. So I could certainly still continue to lay down parallel stitches. They would just gradually get shorter as I move out towards the edge of my shape there. What I actually prefer to do is to instead gradually fan out my stitches so that they're going to actually follow the top of that curve there. So I've actually searched and searched, and I have been unable to locate an official term for this stitch or technique. The closest official stitch name that I could find is turned satin stitch, but that's honestly really not quite what we're going to be doing here. I've also recently heard this technique referred to as tucked satin stitch. And I think that's a really accurate description, but I was unable to locate that terminology in any kind of official sources. So I apologize that I don't have an official name to give you on this, but regardless, I think you're going to find this technique very helpful when you are stitching satin stitch in these kind of situations where you have an irregular or tapered shape. So for this technique, we're going to bring the needle up through the back of the fabric, and we're going to start in the middle of the shape. And you're going to start out just like you normally would with satin stitch, bringing that stitch straight down to the bottom edge. Come back up through right next to that first stitch. But here's where we're going to do something a little bit different. Rather than go all the way down to the bottom, we're going to bring our needle back through just short of that bottom edge. We're going to come back up to the top. That needle through right next to the previous stitch. Now when we come back through this time, we're going to go ahead and come all the way to the bottom, and we're going to be right next to our very first stitch. So as we do that, our thread is going to kind of cover up that second stitch, that end of that second stitch. So you can see how it is kind of tucked away underneath. So you can see why tucked satin stitch is a really good descriptor of what we're doing here. So again, we're going to bring that needle back up through. This time, again, we'll stop just short of that bottom edge. And then on the next stitch, we'll come all the way down, covering up that end of the previous stitch. So you can already see how this is starting to create more of a fan shape with my satin stitches. So I'm going to continue laying down stitches in that same way, all the way till I get to that right edge of my flower petal here. So you can see how this technique really enables my stitches to line up right next to each other, both at the top and at the bottom, even though I have a wider space here at the top than I do down below. So once I finish that right side, I'll come back to the middle, and I'm going to use that same technique to go down the opposite side. Bring my needle through up at the top, and I'll stop just short of that bottom edge. My next stitch, I'll bring it all the way down, and that'll sort of tuck away that shorter stitch so I no longer see the end of that stitch. So hopefully you find this technique helpful in stitching things like flower petals or other irregular shapes, and hope that you are able to use it.